Hello and welcome. Before we begin, I need to make something very clear. Everything you're about to hear today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your situation is unique. Your circumstances are your own. So please speak with a qualified financial advisor before making any decisions about your money or your retirement. All right, let's begin. Today, we're going to talk about something that keeps so many Australians awake at night. The number one reason people run out of money in retirement. And I want you to know, if you've felt that knot in your stomach when you think about your future, you're not alone. If you've sat at the kitchen table, calculator in hand, wondering if you've saved enough, you're not alone. If you've looked at your superannuation balance and felt a wave of panic, you're not alone. Millions of Australians are asking themselves the same question right now: will I have enough? And that question, that fear, it's exhausting, isn't it? Because it's not just about the numbers, it's about your life, your dignity, your ability to live with comfort and peace in the years you've worked so hard to reach. You've spent decades contributing, decades paying taxes, decades doing the right thing. And now, when it matters most, you're worried it might not be enough. So let me tell you something right now. You deserve answers. You deserve clarity. And you deserve to understand exactly what's happening with your money, so you can make informed decisions about your future. That's what today is about. We're going to take our time. We're going to go slowly. And we're going to unpack the single biggest reason Australians run out of money in retirement. Now, what is that reason? Is it not saving enough? Is it investment losses? Is it the stock market? Is it bad luck? No. The number one reason Australians run out of money in retirement is actually quite simple. It's underestimating how long they're going to live. That's it. People are living longer than they ever planned for. And when you live longer than your money lasts, that's when the real problems begin. Let me say that again because it's so important. The number one reason people run out of money is longevity. They outlive their savings. And when that happens, they're forced to rely entirely on the age pension. They lose their choices, they lose their freedom, and they lose the lifestyle they worked their entire lives to build. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I'm being conservative. I'm not planning to live to 100, and that's fair. But here's what the data tells us. The data tells us that we're not very good at predicting our own lifespans. In fact, we consistently underestimate how long we'll live. And that underestimation, that gap between what we expect and what actually happens, that's where the danger lies. So today, we're going to look at why this happens. We're going to look at the Australian context. We're going to understand the numbers. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do about it. Because knowledge is power. And once you understand the problem, you can start building solutions. Let's take a step back in time. Let's look at how retirement used to work in Australia. Because understanding where we've come from helps us understand where we are now. If you're in your 60s or 70s today, you probably remember a very different Australia. You remember when the age pension was introduced back in 1908. You might remember when superannuation became compulsory in the early 1990s. But more than that, you remember a time when life expectancy was much, much lower. In 1950, the average Australian man lived to around 66 years old. Women lived a bit longer, to around 71. Now that might sound shocking to us today, but that was the reality. And here's the thing. When the age pension was designed, when retirement planning was first developed, it was based on those numbers. The assumption was that most people would work until 65, collect a pension for a few years, and then pass away. Retirement was short. It was a brief rest after a lifetime of work. But something remarkable happened. Medicine improved. Public health improved. Safety standards improved. We stopped smoking as much. We started understanding nutrition. We built better hospitals. And as a result, we started living longer, much longer. Today, the average Australian man lives to around 81 years old. Women live to around 85. And those numbers are still climbing. Now, let me put that in perspective. If you retire at 65 today and you're a woman, you could easily live another 25 years. That's a quarter of a century in retirement. That's not a few years of rest. That's a whole new phase of life. And here's the really important part. Many of you will live even longer than the average person, because averages include people who pass away young. If you've already made it to 60 or 65 in good health, your life expectancy is actually higher than the population average. So what does this mean for your money? It means your retirement savings need to last much longer than your parents' retirement savings did. It means that 20-year-old retirement plan you made, it might need to stretch to 30 years or 35 years, and that changes everything. Because when you're planning for 20 years of retirement, you might feel comfortable. You might think, I've got enough. But when you realize you need to plan for 30 or 35 years, suddenly the numbers look very different. And this is where Australians get into trouble. They plan for an average lifespan. They look at those statistics, they see 81 or 85, and they think, okay, that's my target. But what if you're not average? What if you're one of the many Australians who lives to 90 or 95 or 100? And believe me, more and more Australians are reaching those ages every single year. There's another factor here too, the cost of living. Australia has changed economically over the last few decades. When your parents retired, a dollar went a lot further than it does today. Housing was cheaper, groceries were cheaper, healthcare, while not free, was more affordable. But today, we're facing something that previous generations didn't face to the same degree. We're facing sustained inflation. And inflation, over 20 or 30 years, can absolutely devastate your purchasing power. Let me give you an example. Let's say you retire today with $500,000 in superannuation. That sounds like a good amount, doesn't it? It sounds like you should be comfortable. But let's think about inflation. If inflation runs at 3% per year, which is roughly the long-term average, what does that $500,000 look like in 20 years? It looks like about $270,000 in today's buying power. You've lost almost half of your purchasing power just by standing still. And that's the insidious thing about inflation. It's slow, it's steady, and it erodes your wealth year after year, whether you notice it or not. So when we combine longevity with inflation, we start to see the real problem. You're not just trying to make your money last longer, you're trying to make your money last longer while it's simultaneously losing value. And that's a challenge that previous generations simply didn't face to the same degree. Now let's add one more layer to this, healthcare costs. As you age, you're going to need more medical care. That's just a fact of life. And while Australia has an incredible public health system with Medicare, there are still gaps. There are still out-of-pocket expenses. There are specialists, there are procedures that aren't fully covered, there are medications, there are mobility aids, there are home modifications, and all of these costs add up. The Australian Institute of Health and Welfare tells us that healthcare spending increases significantly as people age. And this makes sense. A 70-year-old typically spends more on healthcare than a 40-year-old, and a 90-year-old typically spends more than a 70-year-old. So as you move through retirement, your healthcare costs are likely to rise. And if you haven't factored that into your planning, you could find yourself in a very difficult position. So let's recap where we are. Australians are living longer than ever before. That's wonderful. That's something to celebrate. But it also means retirement lasts longer. And during that longer retirement, inflation is eating away at your purchasing power, and your healthcare costs are rising. And all of this is happening at the same time. This is the perfect storm that causes people to run out of money. Now, let's dig deeper into the technical side of this. And don't worry, I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to explain everything in plain English because you deserve to understand how this works. You deserve to know what's happening with your money. When financial advisors talk about retirement planning, they use something called a withdrawal rate. This is the percentage of your superannuation balance that you withdraw each year to live on. And there's been a lot of research over the years trying to figure out what withdrawal rate is safe. What withdrawal rate allows you to live comfortably without running out of money? One of the most famous studies on this topic is called the 4% rule, and it came out of research done in the United States. The idea is simple. If you withdraw 4% of your initial retirement balance each year, adjusted for inflation, your money should last for 30 years. So if you retire with $500,000, you'd withdraw $20,000 in the first year. Then in the second year, you'd withdraw $20,000 plus an adjustment for inflation, and so on. Now, this 4% rule became very popular. A lot of people latched onto it. A lot of financial planners used it as a guideline. But here's the problem. That research was based on American markets, American investment returns, American inflation rates, and American life expectancies. And Australia is different. Our superannuation system is different. Our investment markets are different, and our regulatory environment is different. So, can we just apply the 4% rule in Australia? Well, maybe, but maybe not. Some Australian research suggests that 4% might be too aggressive for Australian retirees, that it might not provide the same level of security. Other research suggests that with the right investment mix, 4% could work. But the point is, there's uncertainty. And when it comes to your retirement, uncertainty is dangerous. Now, let's think about what happens if you withdraw too much too early. Let's say you retire with $500,000 in superannuation, and let's say you decide you need $30,000 a year to live on. That's 6% of your balance. That's higher than the 4% rule suggests, but you think, I need that money to live comfortably. I've worked hard. I deserve it. So you start withdrawing $30,000 a year, and at first, everything seems fine. You're living well, you're comfortable. But then the stock market has a bad year. Your superannuation balance drops. Let's say it drops to $450,000, but you still need $30,000 to live on. So you withdraw that $30,000. But now you're withdrawing 6.7% of your balance. That's an even higher withdrawal rate. And then maybe the market recovers a bit. But you've locked in those losses by selling investments when they were down, so your balance doesn't fully recover. And then you have another bad year, and suddenly you're in a downward spiral. Your balance is shrinking faster than you expected, and you start to realize that at this rate, your money might not last as long as you need it to. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's one of the most dangerous risks in retirement. It's the risk that you'll experience poor investment returns early in your retirement when you're also withdrawing money. Because when you're withdrawing money during a market downturn, you're selling investments at low prices, and those investments can never recover for you because you've already sold them. Let me give you another example. Let's say two people retire on the same day with the same balance, $500,000 each, and over the next 20 years, they both earn an average return of 5% per year, exactly the same average return. But person 1 experiences good returns in the first 10 years and bad returns in the last 10 years. Person 2 experiences bad returns in the first 10 years and good returns in the last 10 years. You might think they'd end up in the same place. After all, their average return is the same. But they don't end up in the same place, not even close. Person 2, who had bad returns early while they were withdrawing money, ends up with much less because they were forced to sell more investments during the bad years, and that magnifies the damage. This is sequence of returns risk, and it's something that many retirees don't understand until it's too late. So what's the solution? How do you protect yourself from longevity risk? How do you protect yourself from inflation? How do you protect yourself from sequence of returns risk? Well, the first step is understanding that you need to plan for a longer retirement than you think. You need to plan for the possibility that you might live to 95 or 100, not because you definitely will, but because you might. And if you do, you need to be prepared. This means being more conservative with your withdrawal rate. It might mean withdrawing 3.5% instead of 4%, or it might mean having a flexible withdrawal strategy where you withdraw less during bad market years and more during good years. The point is, you need to be strategic. You can't just set it and forget it. You need to actively manage your retirement income. Now, let's talk about another important concept. It's called the replacement rate. This is the percentage of your pre-retirement income that you'll need in retirement to maintain your standard of living. And this is where a lot of Australians make mistakes. They assume that they'll need less money in retirement than they needed while working, and in some ways that's true. You won't be paying for work clothes. You won't be commuting. You won't be paying into superannuation anymore. But in other ways, you might actually spend more. You'll have more free time. You might want to travel. You might want to pursue hobbies. You might want to help your children or grandchildren. And as we talked about earlier, your healthcare costs will likely increase as you age. So this idea that retirement is automatically cheaper than working, it's not always true. Most research suggests that you'll need somewhere between 70 and 90% of your pre-retirement income to maintain your standard of living in retirement. That's called your replacement rate. So if you were earning $60,000 a year before retirement, you might need somewhere between $42,000 and $54,000 a year in retirement. And that money has to come from somewhere. It has to come from your superannuation, your investments, and the age pension if you're eligible. Now, let's talk about the age pension for a moment, because this is an important part of the Australian retirement system. The age pension is a safety net. It's there to provide a basic standard of living for older Australians who don't have enough superannuation or other income to support themselves. And it's a good system. It's helped millions of Australians over the years. But here's the thing. The age pension is means tested. That means your eligibility depends on your income and your assets. If you have too much in superannuation, or if you own too many assets, you might not qualify for a full age pension. You might get a part pension, or you might get nothing at all. And the thresholds for these tests change. They're adjusted periodically by the government, so you can't necessarily rely on the age pension being there for you in the same form it exists today. And even if you do qualify for a full age pension, the amount you receive might not be enough to live the lifestyle you want. The age pension is designed to provide a basic standard of living. It covers essentials, but it's not lavish. It's not going to allow you to travel extensively or dine out regularly or help your grandchildren with their education. So if you're planning to rely entirely on the age pension, you need to be realistic about what that life will look like. This brings us back to the core problem. You need your superannuation to last. You need your investments to last. And that means planning carefully. It means understanding the risks, and it means making smart decisions about how you withdraw your money and how you invest your money during retirement. Now, let's bring this to life with a story. Let me introduce you to Bruce and Jenny. They're not real people, but they represent a very real situation that many Australian couples face. Bruce is 67. Jenny is 65. They've both just retired. Bruce worked as a tradesman for most of his career. Jenny worked part-time as an admin assistant while raising their two children. Together, they've managed to save $400,000 in superannuation, they own their home outright, and they're feeling cautiously optimistic about retirement. Bruce and Jenny sit down one evening and do some calculations. They figure they can live comfortably on $40,000 a year. That's about $3,300 a month. It's not extravagant, but it covers their bills, their groceries, their car expenses, and leaves a bit for leisure. They look at their $400,000 and think, we'll be fine. If we withdraw $40,000 a year, that's 10% of our balance. We should have enough for 10 years, and by then we'll be on the age pension. Problem solved. But Bruce and Jenny are making a critical mistake. Several mistakes, actually. First, they're not accounting for inflation. That $40,000 they need today won't be enough in 10 years. Prices will have gone up. So they'll actually need more money each year just to maintain the same standard of living. Second, they're not accounting for investment returns. Their $400,000 isn't just sitting in a bank account earning nothing. It's invested, and those investments will hopefully grow over time, but they'll also fluctuate. Some years will be good, some years will be bad. And third, they're not accounting for how long they might live. Bruce's dad passed away at 72, so Bruce assumes he'll probably live to around 75, maybe 80 if he's lucky. But statistics tell us that Bruce has a good chance of living into his mid-80s. And Jenny, well, women typically live longer than men. Jenny could easily live into her late 80s or even 90s. So their 10-year plan, it's not realistic. They need a 25 or 30-year plan. Let's follow Bruce and Jenny through their first few years of retirement. In year 1, they withdraw $40,000. Their superannuation balance is now $360,000. But wait, they also earned some investment returns. Let's say they earned 5%. That's $18,000. So their balance is actually $378,000. Not bad. They're only down $22,000. Year 2 comes around. They need $41,200 this year because of inflation. They withdraw that amount. Their balance drops, but again, they earn some investment returns. Things are going okay. They're managing. But then year 3 arrives, and this year, the stock market has a bad year. Their investments lose 10%. Suddenly, their balance drops significantly. They're down to about $320,000, and they still need to withdraw their $42,400 to live on. Now they're worried. They're seeing their balance shrink faster than they expected, and they start to wonder, will we have enough? They talk about cutting back, maybe no holiday this year, maybe put off that car repair for a while longer, maybe eat out less often. And this is the stress. This is the anxiety. This is what happens when you don't plan properly for longevity and inflation and sequence of returns risk. Fast forward another 10 years, Bruce and Jenny are now 77 and 75. Their superannuation balance has dwindled to about $150,000. They're panicking. At this rate, they'll run out of money in less than 5 years. They apply for the age pension, and thankfully they qualify for a part pension. But it's not enough to maintain the lifestyle they've become accustomed to. They have to sell their car and rely on public transport. They can't help their grandchildren anymore. They feel like they've become a burden. And here's the heartbreaking part. Bruce passes away at age 83. Jenny is left alone. She's now 81 years old. She has about $80,000 left in superannuation. She's on a full-age pension now, but it's not much. She can't afford to run the air conditioning in summer. She's skipping medications sometimes because of the cost. She's living month to month, and she's terrified of any unexpected expense because she has no buffer, no safety net. This is what happens when you underestimate longevity. This is what happens when you don't plan properly. And the tragedy is, it was avoidable. If Bruce and Jenny had understood the risks from the beginning, they could have made different decisions. They could have withdrawn less in the early years. They could have been more flexible with their spending. They could have kept working part-time for a few more years to let their superannuation grow. They could have sought professional advice. Now, let's imagine a different version of Bruce and Jenny's story. Same starting point, $400,000 in superannuation, home owned outright, age 67 and 65. But this time, they do things differently. This time, they sit down with a financial advisor, they talk through their goals, they talk through their fears, and they develop a proper retirement income strategy. The advisor explains longevity risk, the advisor explains inflation, the advisor explains sequence of returns risk, and together they develop a plan. Instead of withdrawing $40,000 a year, they decide to start with $35,000. That's a more conservative withdrawal rate. It's about 4% of their balance adjusted for part-age pension. Yes, it means their lifestyle is a bit more modest in the early years, but it also means their money is more likely to last. They also decide on a flexible spending strategy. In good market years, when their superannuation balance grows, they'll allow themselves a bit extra, maybe a nice holiday, maybe help a grandchild with university costs. But in bad market years, they'll tighten their belts, they'll cut back on discretionary spending, they'll make sure they're not selling investments at a loss. This flexibility is crucial. They also keep their superannuation invested in a balanced portfolio. They don't panic and move everything to cash just because they're retired. They understand that they need growth to outpace inflation. But they also have enough in defensive assets like bonds and cash to cover a few years of living expenses. That way, if the market crashes, they're not forced to sell shares at the worst possible time. Fast forward 10 years. This version of Bruce and Jenny is now 77 and 75. How are they doing? Their superannuation balance is still around $350,000. They've withdrawn money to live on, yes, but their investments have grown enough to largely offset those withdrawals. They're not wealthy, but they're comfortable. They're secure, and most importantly, they're not stressed. They know that even if they live into their 90s, they'll be okay. They've built in enough buffer. They've been smart with their spending, and they've allowed their money to work for them. When Bruce eventually passes away at age 83, Jenny is left in a much better position. She has $250,000 in superannuation. She has a full age pension. She can afford to live with dignity. She can afford her medications. She can afford to keep her home comfortable. She's not wealthy, but she's secure. And that security, that peace of mind, it's priceless. So what's the difference between these two versions of Bruce and Jenny? Knowledge, planning, and action. The second version understood the risks. They planned for a longer retirement. They were flexible. They sought professional advice. And because of that, they lived their retirement years with much less stress and much more security. Now, let's talk about what you can do. What are the practical steps you can take today to make sure you don't run out of money in retirement? What are the strategies that can protect you from longevity risk and inflation and all the other challenges we've talked about? First, understand your life expectancy. And I mean really understand it. Don't just look at the average and assume that's you. Go online and use a life expectancy calculator. These tools take into account your age, your gender, your health, your lifestyle, and they give you a more personalized estimate. And then, plan for longer than that estimate. Plan for living 5 or 10 years longer than the calculator suggests. Because if you do live that long, you'll be prepared. And if you don't, well, you'll leave a bit more for your loved ones. That's not a bad problem to have. Second, calculate how much you really need. Sit down and track your expenses for a few months. I mean really track them. Every coffee, every bill, every tank of petrol, every trip to the shops. Add it all up. And then think about how those expenses might change in retirement. Will you travel more? Will you downsize your home? Will you need more health care? Be realistic. Be thorough. And once you have that number, that's your baseline. That's what you need to plan for. Third, understand your withdrawal rate. If you're withdrawing more than 4% of your superannuation balance each year, you might be taking on too much risk. Now, I'm not saying 4% is a magic number. It's not. But it's a useful benchmark. If you're withdrawing 6 or 7 or 8%, that's a red flag. That's a sign that your money might not last as long as you need it to. So consider reducing your withdrawal rate, especially in the early years of retirement. Fourth, be flexible. This is so important. Your retirement income strategy shouldn't be set in stone. It should adapt to changing circumstances. In good years, when your investments are doing well, you can afford to spend a bit more. In bad years, you need to tighten your belt. This flexibility can make an enormous difference to how long your money lasts. And yes, it requires discipline, it requires paying attention, but it's worth it. Fifth, keep some money in growth assets. I know that sounds scary. I know that when you're retired, the idea of having money in the stock market can be frightening. But here's the reality. If you move all your money to cash, inflation will destroy your purchasing power. You need growth to keep up with inflation. Now, I'm not saying you should have everything in shares, that would be reckless, but a balanced portfolio with a mix of shares, bonds, and cash, that can give you both growth and stability. Sixth, consider your asset allocation over time. In the early years of retirement, you might be comfortable with a bit more risk. You have time to recover from market downturns. But as you get older, as you get into your 80s and 90s, you might want to become more conservative. You might want to shift more money into defensive assets. This is called a glide path strategy, and it can help protect you from sequence of returns risk. Seventh, think about the age pension. Understand the eligibility rules. Understand the asset test and the income test, and think about how you can structure your affairs to maximize your entitlement. Now, I'm not talking about gaming the system. I'm talking about legitimate strategies. For example, if you're over 65 and you have money in superannuation, that's assessed differently than money you hold in other investments. Understanding these rules can help you make smarter decisions. Eighth, consider income products. Australia has developed some interesting retirement income products in recent years, things like annuities and account-based pensions. These products can provide you with a regular income stream, sometimes guaranteed for life. Now, they're not right for everyone, and they come with trade-offs, but they can be a useful tool for managing longevity risk. If you're worried about outliving your money, an annuity that provides guaranteed income for life might give you peace of mind. Ninth, think about your home. For many Australians, their home is their biggest asset, and it's not included in the age pension asset test. But if you're struggling financially in retirement, your home might be a resource you can tap into. You could downsize to a smaller, cheaper property and free up some capital. Or you could look into equity release products, sometimes called reverse mortgages, which allow you to access some of your home's value while still living there. These products have risks, and you need to understand them fully, but they're an option. 10th, and this is perhaps the most important, seek professional advice. I know I've said this before, but I want to emphasize it again. Retirement planning is complex. The rules change, the markets change, your circumstances change. A qualified financial advisor can help you navigate all of this. They can help you develop a strategy that's tailored to your situation. They can help you understand your options, and they can help you make decisions with confidence. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but financial advisors are expensive. And yes, good advice does cost money. But think of it this way. If a financial advisor helps you make better decisions that result in your money lasting 5 years longer, how much is that worth? How much is that security worth? How much is that peace of mind worth? Often, the cost of advice is far outweighed by the value it provides. Let's talk about one more strategy. It's called bucketing. This is a way of organizing your retirement savings to manage both growth and security. The idea is to divide your money into different buckets based on when you'll need it. Bucket 1 is your short-term bucket. This is money you'll need in the next 2 or 3 years. This money should be in cash or very safe investments. You never want to be forced to sell shares in a market downturn to pay for groceries. Bucket 2 is your medium-term bucket. This is money you'll need in 3 to 10 years. This money can be in more conservative investments, maybe bonds, maybe a balanced fund, something that provides a bit of growth but isn't too volatile. And bucket 3 is your long-term bucket. This is money you won't need for more than 10 years. This money can be in growth assets, shares, property, things that might be volatile in the short term but provide better returns over the long term. The beauty of the bucketing strategy is that it gives you both security and growth. You know your immediate needs are covered because bucket 1 is safe, so you can afford to take a bit more risk with bucket 3. And each year you review your buckets. You might move some money from bucket 3 to bucket 2, or from bucket 2 to bucket 1. You're constantly rebalancing to make sure you're prepared for the short term while still allowing for long-term growth. All right, let's bring this all together. Let's talk about what this means for you right now, today. You're at a crossroads. You're either approaching retirement or you're already in it, and you're worried. You're worried about running out of money. You're worried about making mistakes. You're worried about the future. And I want you to know that those worries are valid. They're real. but they're also manageable. The number one reason Australians run out of money in retirement is underestimating how long they'll live. It's longevity risk. And the solution is to plan for a longer retirement than you think you'll need. Plan for living to 95 or 100. Be conservative with your withdrawal rate. Be flexible with your spending. Keep your money invested in a balanced portfolio. Understand the age pension rules and seek professional advice. These aren't complicated strategies. They're not get-rich-quick schemes. They're sensible, practical steps that anyone can take, but they require action. They require you to take control of your retirement planning. They require you to be proactive rather than reactive. And they require you to start now, not next year, not when you finally get around to it, now. Because here's the truth. Every day you delay is a day your money isn't working as hard as it could be. Every day you delay is a day you're exposed to unnecessary risk. And every day you delay is a day you're carrying that stress and worry unnecessarily. So make a commitment to yourself right now. Commit to taking action. Commit to understanding your situation. Commit to planning properly. And let me tell you something else. Retirement should be one of the best times of your life. You've worked hard for decades. You've raised your family. You've contributed to your community. You've paid your taxes. You've done everything right. And now this is your time. This is your third act. This is when you get to do the things you've always wanted to do. Travel, spend time with grandchildren, pursue hobbies, relax, enjoy life. But you can only do those things if you have financial security. You can only enjoy your retirement if you're not constantly worried about money. You can only truly relax if you know you've planned properly. And that's what today has been about, giving you the knowledge and the tools to create that security, to create that peace of mind. So let me leave you with this. You are not alone in your worries. Millions of Australians are facing the same challenges, but you are also not powerless. You have options, you have strategies, and you have the ability to take control of your financial future. Don't let fear paralyze you. Don't let overwhelm stop you. Take it one step at a time. Start with understanding your life expectancy, then calculate your expenses, then review your withdrawal rate, then talk to an advisor. Each small step builds on the previous one, and before you know it, you'll have a comprehensive retirement income strategy. You'll have a plan, and you'll have confidence. Confidence that you've done everything you can to protect yourself. Confidence that your money will last, and confidence that you can enjoy your retirement years without that constant gnawing worry. Your retirement years should be golden. They should be filled with joy and purpose and freedom. Don't let poor planning rob you of that. Don't let longevity risk catch you by surprise. Take action now, plan properly, and give yourself the gift of a secure, comfortable, dignified retirement. You've earned it, you deserve it, and it's within your reach. Before we finish, let me remind you once again, everything we've discussed today is general information only. It is not personal financial advice. Your situation is unique, so please speak with a qualified financial advisor before making any decisions about your retirement income strategy. They can help you understand your specific circumstances and develop a plan that's right for you. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for caring enough about your future to listen. Thank you for being willing to learn. And thank you for taking the first step toward a more secure retirement. I wish you all the very best. I wish you health, I wish you happiness, and I wish you the financial security to enjoy every moment of your third act. Take care.